there's a lot of content and there's a lot of excitement and encouragement that surrounds things like sinking funds, emergency funds, investments and X, Y, and Z, but you can't always take advantage of those. Or if you can, there's always going to be a cap. Whereas the reality is insurance gives you access to money that you never had.
That's true.
You don't have to save 50 grand.
That's true.
If, you know, you get diagnosed with a critical illness. You don't have to save £100,000 for your child if you're no longer here.
Yeah.
You don't have to save, you know, 6 months worth of emergency fund if you're signed off work sick tomorrow and have still got to pay the bills.
Welcome back to the Takeoff. We've got a special guest in the building, Ella, the award-winning insurance expert. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, welcome. You're very, very, very welcome. So give the guests a bit about yourself. So you're award-winning insurance expert. What else?
Oh, yeah, I've been in the insurance industry for a few years. Award-winning, that's within my firm. So not that it's like, yeah, it's nice to say, but it's not to say that it's like, I'm not FCA award-winning. Do you know what I mean? Like the government haven't said she's award-winning, but so been in the insurance industry a few years now, quite active on social media. And I'm just kind of really proactive in trying to bridge that gap between people who are financially literate and those who aren't or believe they are, and they can always just learn a bit more. I love that. And that's how we actually connected, right, on Instagram, because we do something very similar. So I guess we call ourselves financial influencers, a little bit fringe, but content creators.
Creators trying to teach people about finance. I always ask people this question.
Go for it.
Because you're a financial influencer, so this could actually be funnier. So, what's your worst financial mistake? Okay,
right. So, and this actually kind of ties into why I ended up doing what I was doing in the insurance industry. So, there was a particular year, multiple circumstances that happened within the year, but I ended up taking out a loan of £18,000 to try and consolidate a bit of debt. I was also out of work at the time, and so the logic was that basically, you know, whilst I'm out of work, I can consolidate debt, which can obviously increase my disposable income and until I get myself back on my feet. Whereas looking back, more money to consolidate debt did not make any sense whatsoever because I didn't address the issues as to why I got into debt in the first place. And so, it was just bad education on not even necessarily being financially literate and how to earn money and etc., but bad education on what to do when things go wrong. Like when you do find yourself in debt and just those sorts of things. At the time, it was like, you're being really efficient here, Ella, consolidate debt and blah. And then now when I look back, it's like, you just increased your debt.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's mad. Wow. 18 grand, that's a lot.
18 grand.
But it's, you know what's interesting? Because I always like to find the good in a story. It's interesting that you thought about consolidation. Why did you think about that? Yeah,
so like I said, I found myself out of work. So I had a bit of ill health. And then whilst I had the ill health, I was made redundant. And so it was like a catch-22. I wasn't well, so I couldn't get back into work. But at the same time, I'd been made redundant, so I wasn't earning. So it was like this catch-22. So my logic was, to basically you need money, you know, you've got outgoing, so consolidate the debt, which pays those off, and then you've still got cash available to keep yourself afloat until you can get back into work, which is why I say at the time it felt like a really good idea. But the reality is I probably could have just maybe explored a few more options before heading straight into £18,000 worth of debt. This was before I had even considered being a financial consultant as well.
Oh my gosh. You know what, it happens to us all. You know, I've spoken about my debt story. I've also been in debt, and many of us have been in debt. I think we all have to go through the fire.
You have to,
before,
you have to learn from mistakes.
Wow. That is interesting. I think that's the biggest so far. 18 grand.
Okay, well,
Can you give us a bit of insight into the day in the life of Ella?
Okay, so average day is basically whatever clients that I have booked in for that day. I usually have like a discovery call with them. So that's just understanding like their needs, their objectives. A lot of clients, when it comes to insurance as well, understand that it's something that they want to put in place, but there's not much thereafter. So usually it's just about having that initial conversation with clients that I may have spoken to recently or previously. It's doing a bit of research for them. So working out what sort of protection package is the best for them, what sort of solution. So it would then be a case of coming back to them. And then, of course, it would involve creating some content, because that's where I try to stay obviously quite active on social media. So creating some content that's relevant to what I do and relevant to what I think would help my audience. Maybe the odd meeting here or there. And then, that's about it, really. Being a mum.
Mum. And you're also a podcaster, right?
So I've got a show that I do with my co-host, Lynn. We've got a YouTube show, Attic, All Things in Conversation. So that kind of covers anything that's news related, political, anything relevant to the economy, just those sorts of things.
Wow. Busy. Very busy. Yes. That is insane. I wanted to dial back into like talking about the customers. So you talked about income protection, you talked about life insurance. A few years ago, I didn't know what life insurance was. I didn't pay no attention to it, really. And we all get those calls from our banks, emails, life insurance. Can you give a quick summary of what life insurance is? So there's loads of different types of insurances. Essentially, life insurance is the policy that pays out when you pass away. So it's the one where you're being responsible that, unfortunately, if you have to leave us prematurely, your family aren't worried about putting money together to lay you to rest. Like I said, there's loads of different policies. So there's like critical illness, that's the one for ill health. And then you've got income protection, that's your day-to-day. If you can't work, that's the one that you want. Wow, thank you. Very simple explanation, clear. I hope you guys heard that. How did you get into it? How did you get into life insurance?
So the reality is after, so I'd been self-employed for a period of time before I had my son. And then I came off maternity leave, went back in because my previous role was sort of in marketing. So I've always been in client-facing roles, but was in marketing, was already doing something there. And then someone basically mentioned to me, oh, look, this is a great way because you're in a client-facing role. You can further facilitate your clients by offering them this extra service. So that was genuinely the initial contact. I had an uncle that had passed away that had life insurance. So it's not something that I wasn't familiar with in comparison to other people. I had it myself because I bought my property, so I knew I needed life insurance for my mortgage. Like I said, I had an uncle. So it was something that I was familiar with. So immediately I thought, this isn't something that I can't have a conversation about. And I also immediately saw a gap as well that people are getting the emails. They are getting the annoying telephone calls from the bank. But the reality is there is people out there like myself now that you can sit down and have a genuinely honest conversation about and say, look, I need a contingency plan. What happens if things go left? What happens if I can't do X, Y, and Z? And you're surprised at how much is available to you. So it was after having that conversation that I was like, I'm getting into this industry. There is a massive gap, which is why I then kind of took the social media route as well. I didn't want to just be that advisor that gives you a call and says, I've got something that I'm trying to explain. It was like, no. Let me share this loud and proud so people can really be educated on it. Because I think as well, in the space of financial content creators, it's still something that's overlooked. There's a lot of talk about, how to manage debt and the different techniques, how to save, how to invest. But what about the contingency plan? Do you know what I mean? It's not always just about having as much wealth or as much cash, because you can't always liquidate those and use them in a time of need. So that's kind of why I headed into it.
Wow. Okay, so take me back to like when you first, I don't know, your first customer. What was that like? What was that experience like?
To be honest, it was someone that I knew. It was a really good friend of mine. So I was really lucky, to be fair, in that instance. But it was literally just a chat with friends and family and saying, this is what I'm moving into. And from that, I was even overwhelmed with the amount of people around me that turn around and said, oh my gosh, well, the minute, you know, you're qualified and you've completed your training, I need to have a conversation. It's something I've been thinking about, just haven't bothered. Because the reality is no one knows where to start. No. It's not car insurance. We're not trying to go on Money Supermarket and find the cheapest policy. It's not. It's overwhelming. So, and then, just through putting information out on social media, I had someone like drop me a DM and then it was like, oh, okay. And now I literally get like 90% of my clients through social media.
Wow. Talking about the social media route, when did you take this decision to go to social media and why?
I think because I wanted the conversation to be organic. And one thing about me as well is because I'm aware of the pitfalls in the industry and the sort of sales element that comes across to clients. Also the elements of where clients have been missold or where they haven't had the right cover in place. It was trying to understand everyone's negative experience and find a way to combat that. And I thought the best way to do that was just being transparent on social media. You know, it's like the platform where you can be as loud as you want. No one's sort of marginalizing you in any way. So that's kind of why I thought, you know what, take to social media. And also logic, I'm a businesswoman. You get to cover a greater ground of people through social media than trying to pick up a phone and have a conversation with someone.
That's true. That's very true. Wow, that's a very, very smart move. And the content creation, why that? Because, you know, it's one thing like, you know, having people reach out to you and speak to them, you know, via DM, but the content creation, why did you also start doing that?
I think that kind of happened organically. So I think it was more just about putting out content to start with that I knew would resonate with people or that I thought was useful. And then through that, I think lockdown obviously helped a lot of people. I remember there was a period of time where, you know, forget Netflix, everyone was on Instagram Live every single night. Like,
every night. You know everybody
I mean? It was like
was
between 7 and 10 Instagram Live. So
it was crazy.
It was crazy. So I took advantage of that as well. And then just networking, you know, through social media, as everyone knows, you get to network, and then a couple of opportunities came from it. So I thought, as anyone would, if an opportunity comes your way, you run with it. And I think as well, getting the feedback. So having feedback from people when, this is something that I think a lot of people overlook on social media is you never know who's watching or who you're helping. And so every now and then when you get that one message where it's like, I've been following you for a while and it's really helpful, you're like, oh, okay, let me keep going.
It's a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling. It means that you're definitely making an impact, which you are.
Exactly.
And you're putting out things that resonate. I think the funny thing about lockdown and, you know, speaking to a few people that started it, did you start yours because of lockdown or were you already doing this before that?
So I was already doing it just before lockdown. And then of course lockdown hit and it was like, oh, okay. And funny enough, I've got a friend, Tia Ward, and we put out some content together. She's like a content creator as well. And it was at the very, very point of when lockdown hit that her and I created some content together. And I'm not going to lie, at the beginning of lockdown, I was thinking, I was meeting clients face to face. And now I'm in the house with a 1-year-old just thinking, this sounded good at the start, but now I'm thinking, how is this going to work? And then, like I said, I did a bit of content with Tia. We were just talking about finances in general, and then got an influx of messages of people saying, this is the content that I've been looking for, etc., etc., etc. And that's when I thought, no, girl, keep running with it. This is possible. Just keep going.
That's crazy. You know what I was thinking? You're very driven. It sounds like you're very, very, not sounds like, you are very driven. I can tell by the content, by what you're telling me today. Where does that come from? Where does that drive come from?
I think I'm ambitious anyway.
Okay. Why?
That's a good point.
Because there's a reason, right, for why you're so ambitious. Because some people, you know, some people are not.
Some people are not driven. They're comfortable with where they are.
Whereas you are driven, you're like, social media, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to go there. Some people are scared to do that.
I think it's about knowing your skill set. So I'm not uncomfortable with having a conversation on camera, off camera, in front of a group of people. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get nervous like the rest of them. But I think it's about knowing your skill set. And I've always had feedback when having a conversation where someone said, you always appear to be confident. So again, you run with it. So I think that's when if you know yourself and you know what your strengths are, then it kind of allows you to develop that ambition. I think definitely being a mum definitely helps, because you just always want to create better for your children than what you had, whether you had the best or the worst. You just always want to create better for them. And I just think, why limit yourself? It's really weird, but like when you watch films from like 1960s or the 1900s, you think they never thought the world was going to be like this in 2020. Us in 2021, it's like literally we're limitless. So
That's true. What do you want to achieve then? What are you looking to achieve?
What am I looking? There's a lot of things I'm looking to achieve. So I think obviously financial independence is always something that's on the cards. And I think a lot of people get confused with that as well. It's like, what is financial independence? Streams of income, but being happy with what you're doing as well. Not doing something because you need to pay the bills, doing something because you love what you do. So definitely that. Things available so that way my son can look at me and go, my mum's lit, like she does this, she does that, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean? And then making an impact. Like I said, I think going into the industry that I was in, one thing that was really important for me was integrity. Was like, I don't want someone coming away, because I've heard some stories, so I don't want someone coming off the phone thinking, did she just sell me a dream, or like, have I got really good cover? Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with not only people's money, but people's lives as well.
That's true.
I think being able to make an impact is something that, in whatever capacity you're in, was something that was like, okay, if I could do that, then go for it.
Wow. That's a multifaceted answer. I love that.
I told you a lot of things.
That is great. I wanted to go back into like the impact and, being ethical. Why do you think some people are not ethical when it comes to maybe, giving people the right cover, and how can people avoid those sort of situations?
I think it comes down to intentions. I mean, like, let's be honest. Everyone knows us as consultants in the insurance industry, we get paid a commission. It's not a secret. As there are loads of other roles where people are paid commission. But I think if that transparency is there from the start, then you as the client certainly can feel a lot more comfortable in continuing that conversation. I mean, it's never the client's fault if you come across an advisor or any individual in whatever capacity, if they are unethical. It's never the client's fault. But again, to answer your question, it's about that person's intention. So are they trying to help this individual because this is a means to an end and they're going to get paid for it? And you can kind of usually tell that with the type of conversation, the communication thereafter, the follow-up. Don't get me wrong, things happen. People are late. People forget to call people back. People forget to respond to an email. Things happen. But if you can then have a follow-up conversation and all of that is transparent, you know where you stand. Whereas if you try and have a conversation, it's like, there's just a whole load of excuses then.
It's a gut feel, right? Like if you have that gut feel that this person,
I'm just not sure.
They're not, they seem like they care. And usually your gut feeling is right.
Definitely.
I think there's nothing wrong with exchanging money. We exchange money for everything. So I don't know why people make it seem like it's some bad thing. That's how businesses make money, right?
We live in a capitalist society. You got to spend your money to get X, Y, and Z in return.
Exactly.
But I think it's just about that transparency at the very, very beginning. Like, look, like I say if my clients ask and they're like, well, what's the breakdown? Okay, this is a free service for you. The provider pays my broker.
Okay.
Because the provider pays my broker because they need to pay for my qualifications, my expertise to be able to give you the recommended advice in the first place. Competitor Market can't do that. And then there's the administration. You're getting the administration of me putting in place a plan for you. But then you're getting the follow-up service, things like trusts and, courtesy calls and reviews and being able to call the providers. So that's where the money comes from, but you don't have to worry about that because you're going to pay a premium. So you're getting twice the benefit. You pay your premium so you get your cover, but also by you paying your premium, the provider can then pay my broker who then pays me. If that's transparent from the start, you can't go wrong.
That's true. Yeah. I love that. I love that you're transparent with it. And I was just thinking, your conversations with clients, were you ever like, because you said your first few were like with friends, were you ever like nervous or did you ever get like pushback, and how did you deal with that pushback? Because those kind of skills are relevant in anything, even like when you're doing other types of business.
Okay, so In terms of objection handling,
yeah.
I mean,
must be tough, right? Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
I've had it like I said, because I've worked in a client-facing role and in marketing as well. Like when you're trying to call a client and invite them to an event, you know, like with previous brands that I've worked for. So I have experienced the objection. So it was nice that I had that to bring into the role. But in all honesty, my tactic at the beginning was, I'm not interested. Okay. I'm
interested,
out.
Really?
They're not interested. I'm not pushing. I'm not asking again. But you know what it is as well? There's a level of responsibility on the individual as well. Yeah. So if, like I said, if I know I've got integrity and I know why I'm having a conversation with them in the first place, which is because I genuinely think it can be of some form of benefit. Yeah. Even if I give them the information and they don't become my client and they become someone else's client, I've still done half of the job because I've given them the information. Yeah. So if they're not even willing to take that, that ain't on me. That's on you. So if you don't want to hear it, I'm out. I'm not trying to push. Now, of course, with much more experience, you can just appreciate that sometimes not everyone is saying no because it's a genuine no. It just may be a no in that moment. Yeah. Or it may be a no even to test you. Okay. You know, how are they going to handle this? No, I don't want to speak to you. Let's see what you come back with. And it's like, God, okay, I appreciate that. And you navigate the conversation slightly differently so it's on their terms. And then it's like, I've had that. Oh, I did that on purpose. I was testing you because, you know, I the industry and X, Y, and Z, and it's got a bad rep. And then, no one's ever that scary.
Okay. Wow. It's challenging. It sounds like
it
can be challenging. How do you keep yourself motivated to keep on going day in and day out? Because you're self-employed. Yeah. Right. So how do you? Because I remember, like, for me, I've got my reasons why I'm motivated, why I work hard, and there are some days like, you know, and then I remember, actually, this is the target, this is what I'm doing. So how do you keep yourself motivated?
I think goals are definitely necessary. And I think goals in all elements of life. So I got a nice little saying, a quote. So it's like planning decades, thinking years, live... gosh, I got to remember it now. Planning decades, thinking years, live in months, and work in days. Something along, it's on my Instagram, but something along those lines. Yeah. So it's about always thinking ahead, but not too far ahead. Yeah. So you can always have the goal at the very end. That's what keeps you excited. Yeah. But the reality is you got to have something that's tangible enough, like you said, to keep going. Because there's days you're going to wake up and you're just going to think, this is long. I am tired. So you got to have something that's tangible, but sometimes it's not always about trying to buy a property or trying to get a car or trying to retire your parents. Sometimes it's about your quality of life as well. You know, like in 20 years' time, I want to have X amount invested. So what does that mean now? It means being in a place where I can comfortably put aside 10% of my income. Yeah. You know, being in a place where I don't ever have to consider debt as a backup plan. Yeah. It's like, if I'm going to use a credit card, it's because I want to leverage it. Yeah. You know, just little things like that. Just, I think, like I said, having goals in all areas of your life and then really breaking it down to what's achievable. If you can break it down and still get excited about them every day, then you'll keep going.
Fantastic answer.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode. I do really appreciate your support so far. If you do want to support the production of this podcast further and you want to get early access to the next episode of the Takeoff podcast, or you want to join in a monthly live Q&A, make sure to check out the link in my description. Either pledge to my Patreon or subscribe to my YouTube membership. Either way, I do appreciate you supporting me and helping me to build the best business and finance community in the world. I do hope that you enjoy the rest of this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I completely believe in goals. I have 10-year goals. I have 20-year goals. Yeah, I have 20-year goals. One of my 20 years goals is to be Arsenal manager. I don't think that's gonna ever happen, but you know, I'm still motivated to do it.
You never know. Write it down.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think having goals are important, and having manageable goals, I think, is even more important. A lot of people set these crazy goals, and that's not what it's about. You're not trying to kill yourself. You're trying to set something that you think you can manage. It's a little bit challenging, but it's not too challenging to the point where you just become dejected halfway through the year. That's definitely not the one. So going back to, you know, working, so you're a businesswoman. How do you manage that with motherhood, like being very driven and then also, you know, doing your mother duties as well?
I won't say it's easy. It's not. It's hard because, of course, it's almost like a consistent test.
Yeah.
You know, between trying to make sure you strike that balance between being the proactive, attentive mother who's always available with the person who is driven and ambition and trying to take advantage of everything that is possible. So it is very testing, but I think deep down again, you know, in your heart of hearts, you know, what's right, what's wrong. And I think it's about setting boundaries as well. You know, if anything is costing you too much of your peace, and peace can look like so many different things. Like for me, peace can be chilling with my son. Peace can be me just having quiet time on my own. Peace can be just, you know, no drama. So I think if there's anything that's going to cause you too much, then it may be something that you just have to let go of. And then you know what? For anyone else who's got a business out there, you got to be willing to outsource. You got to be willing to invest in yourself to then get the best out of your business. So if that means taking on an assistant, like there's virtual assistants on Fiverr that are really, really like affordable, but get it. Because if that frees up an extra couple of hours, even a few minutes or whatever, even if it frees up headspace, it's worth it.
That's very, 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 very true. Why do you think people have a problem spending money to invest in themselves, but it's very easy for them to spend money on a Gucci bag, £500? Is it even £500? It's probably £1,000.
Could be, you know, the maths might be a bit.
I don't know if Louis are in fashion, but like Jordans and stuff like that. Why is it so much easier for people to do that than invest in business and saving time?
I don't think those people have written a business plan.
You don't think so?
I don't think they've written a business plan. Because the reality is if you've got a business or, you know, you've got something that you're actively working at and you want to scale it. Bottom line is if you want to get from here to here, there has to be a route. What's the route? You get in your car or you get on the train or the tube and you plan your route from A to Z. So the reality is what's in between. No one, if they're trying to get from A to Z, is going to go all around the houses deliberately. You know, you're going to plan the most effective and maybe the most cost-effective route. So like I said, those people haven't written a business plan, because if they had, they're going to think, okay, what is this costing me? And like I said, it's not always money. It's not always about, but if I employ someone and my profits are £500, they're now going to be 250. They might be 250, but you might have an extra 24 hours in the week that you are just sitting back doing nothing that you can then use to generate more income. So if you use those other 24 hours in the week, you might have spent 250 here, but you might be earning 500 here. Now you're at 750 rather than 500. Okay. So those people ain't really a business plan.
That's smart. That's smart. Wow, you're dropping gems, you know. Wow. Okay. There's so much I want to like tally off on that, because, you know, going back to, you know, balancing motherhood and also working hard, business plan, and, you know, investing. Do you feel like you've had to make any sort of sacrifices to,
definitely. And I think it's about understanding the sacrifices. So earlier this year, I mean, it's not a secret, but earlier this year I moved. I sold my flat last year. And my partner and my son, we all moved into a bigger house at the beginning of this year. But the reality is it took hard work to be able to acquire the deposit to be able to make that move. But as a family, it was something we knew we was going to do, something we really wanted to do. So were there times last year where I was working incredibly hard? And that meant sacrificing, you know, some nights not being able to put my son to bed, or it meant not always, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was lockdown, so how much celebrating and going out and stuff was we doing? That's the reality.
People it saved then, whoa, you got a problem, you know?
Exactly. So, but at the end of the day, there's definitely sacrifice. And again, sacrifice in terms of energy, sacrifice in terms of headspace, but there was a goal in sight and the goal made sense. So when the goal was then achieved, I could never look back and be like, oh my gosh, I did X, Y, and Z, and now I'm just thinking, was it worth it? Because I made sure it was going to be worth it from the get-go. So I think, there's definitely going to be things to sacrifice. You just have to weigh it up and make sure that it's going to be worth it. If not, and it's a lesson learned, then it still was a relevant sacrifice to a degree, because you can know what to do better in the first place. I think there's a lot of things when it comes to being an entrepreneur and a business CEO, you know, like work hard. No, we can work hard. And we can work smart. And, you know, combining the two, being willing to outsource. I mean, I don't have it all figured out, but being willing to outsource, also being willing to learn, then like, keep going, stick with that. But you just got to make sure the sacrifices are worth it. Otherwise, what's the point?
It's true. You don't want to sacrifice yourself into a hole. That is the worst kind of situation. You work so hard, and now you're just basically on a hamster wheel. You can't get off. That is the worst kind of situation I could ever imagine. And I'm constantly thinking of not, you know, getting myself, like, if you even think from a career point of view, a lot of people work so hard, they get so high up, and they get to a point, they're earning so much money, but they can't spend the money. They can't do anything.
Yeah, it's now what? So what was the goal? Exactly. 100K salary?
Yeah. But 100K working 24 hours doesn't make no sense.
Do you see what I mean? Exactly.
So, It's definitely about thinking about it before doing it, and like you say, working hard, working smart. It's very, very, very vital to not get yourself in a hole. So I'm very, very conscious of that. Going back to life insurance.
Yes.
What would you say are the benefits of life insurance, critical illness? I've got critical illness and I've got life insurance at the moment. So one of the good ones. But for the people that are not the good ones, what's the benefit?
The benefits are, there are so many. So the reality is the benefits of any type of protection in place is you have a contingency plan. That's the reality. And like I was saying as well, there's a lot of content and there's a lot of excitement and encouragement that surrounds things like sinking funds, emergency funds, investments, and X, Y, and Z. But you can't always take advantage of those. Or if you can, there's always going to be a cap. Whereas the reality is insurance gives you access to money that you never had.
That's true.
You don't have to save 50 grand.
That's true.
If, you know, you get diagnosed with a critical illness. You don't have to save £100,000 for your child if you're no longer here. You don't have to save, 6 months worth of emergency fund if you're signed off work sick tomorrow and have still got to pay the bills.
That is very true.
It's access to money for a fraction of the price, that you didn't have to work hard for. So for me, from that perspective, it's a no-brainer. There are loads of other benefits tied in. I know 100%. A lot of my clients do it. They did not read the small print. You have got access to GPs. You've got access to health reviews. You've got you've got access to, like mental health support, recruitment support, bereavement services. There are a whole load of things that are tied in to your protection policies, and the providers are proactive at adding even more benefits into the premiums. I had a conversation with Zurich a couple of weeks ago, and they're actively working towards, developing apps that come along with your life insurance policy, and just all of those things that can contribute towards your mental and health and well-being, all of those sorts of things. So there are loads of benefits, but bottom line is access to money you didn't have to work for. Okay,
wow. That was very, very, very interesting. You know what? I think the parts that excites me is the little benefits that you were saying, like the GP, remote GP, the mental health. That's really, really, really good benefits. And you're right, nobody reads the small print. I don't read the small print of anything.
You don't, because you think the policy's put down. And if you think about it as well, the benefits that are tied in are actually really strategic. So it's almost, the way the providers have done it is, we're going to give you access to mental health support from now. Because we don't want you to actually have to take advantage of the policy, because that usually means that something's happened if you have to take advantage. But the logic of that is we've already mentally prepared you, because the reality is mental health, physical health, and finances go hand in hand. So if you think about the loss of a loved one, we can't even begin to expect what the mental anguish is when something like that happens, let alone worrying about still paying the bills. So that's why all of those additional benefits are tied in as well. It's almost a way of preparing you and saying, look, this is actually what goes hand in hand with finances. Take advantage of them now while you don't really need to, so you can be prepared, not if the worst was to happen, but just so we can give you that extra benefit. Then if the worst does happen, at least now you can appreciate it even more, because we were giving you these benefits from the beginning.
Wow. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it than I did not realize. I'm going to have to have a look at my life insurance, see what kind of benefits I'm getting. That is mad. So, we're both millennials. And obviously we have the Gen Zs behind us. And I guess, do they need life insurance? Should they be considering life insurance?
Yeah.
And what's the best ones for them?
Yeah, so maybe if it's not even necessarily life insurance, but definitely income protection.
Okay.
We as a generation...
Do they still do that?
What, income protection? Yeah.
Okay, because I remember,
Yeah.
didn't they pull some
They
type?
pulled redundancy.
Redundancy, okay.
And
Yeah,
unemployment.
that's crazy. Imagine you had that
what they
before that.
pulled.
Yeah.
So they pulled that with COVID because literally like March 13th last year, as with any insurance policy, there's an application. In the application, it says, are you at risk of redundancy or unemployment? Well, the reality is when COVID hit, the whole country was. No one knew how businesses were going to be affected. So they had to pull the cover because they couldn't effectively insure people.
Okay.
But the reality that not a lot of people know is income protection now, it covers you for ill health, sickness, accident, etc.
Okay.
What a lot of people take for granted is that can also be effective if you're out of work. So if you've got an income protection policy today and you're working, and then you end up being in between roles and you can't now effectively find more work because you're sick, your income protection policy will kick in.
Okay.
So it's not a case where you just have to have the income protection policy because you're employed. What about the periods in between where you can't now get more work because you're not well?
Okay.
So I would definitely say with millennials and the generations coming behind us, no one's staying in jobs or roles as long as they were. Like our parents, it's like 10, 20 years that they're staying with a company. Whereas the reality is, I think the average time, now is between 18 months and 2 years that any one person is staying in a role. No one ain't trying to stay with an employer just because of the employee benefits.
No.
Do you see what I'm saying?
No way. No.
So that's why I say income protection is a no-brainer. And the reality is it's really affordable. I mean, you can't quote me on this because it depends on the person and it's all tailored to their circumstances. But if you're on a 30K salary for less than 1% of that salary, so that's like £25 a month, you can insure your income.
Yeah. I mean, you pay more for mobile phone, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure in a couple of years, Netflix is going to be at that price as well.
Yeah,
so.
The way it's going, it's like
the way it's going up.
£9 now, yeah.
I think it's even more than that. I think it's like $11.99 or something. Yeah, see? So yeah, definitely income protection for millennials. And then critical illness as well. Unfortunately, the statistics, especially with COVID, reality is apparently 1 in 2 of us is going to get cancer. I'm not even going to look at you because
oh my
there's 2 of us.
No, why do you say that?
I'm just stating the facts.
Oh
but
my gosh.
Yeah.
Why have I never heard of this?
Yeah. So there's loads of statistics out there where, we're living longer, but the reality is we're also surviving critical illnesses more. But the reality is they are increasing.
Okay. Wow.
I'm not going to say no to £50,000 to help me if I have to be out of work for 6 months because I had a heart attack for whatever reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy because the critical illness, I didn't even really know that they had that insurance. You see, this is how uneducated I was about that space. The reason why I actually got critical illness was because I was buying my property and he said, you should get this just in case.
You should get a life and critical illness plan on a decreasing term to match your mortgage.
To be fair, he was all right. He wasn't like trying to, he was a good broker, but he mentioned it. I was like, that's a good idea. You're right. If I do fall ill, who's going to pay for this mortgage?
That's what I'm saying.
And I need somewhere to live. So that was one of the reasons. And you're right. Like, I don't know about the 1 in 2 cancer. That's scary, but you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen. So you're better off in definitely insuring yourself. There's so many illnesses out there these days. And now we got COVID to add to that.
We don't even know what the long-term effects are.
Exactly. We definitely don't know. I've had COVID. I'm fine. As you guys could tell, I had it a year and a bit ago. But yeah, you don't know. Going back to life insurance, is there anybody, or even critical illness insurance, is there anybody that shouldn't get it? Or should everybody have it?
I think everyone should have it. I don't think there's anyone that shouldn't. I mean, like I said, you are working for the best employer of all employers. They're giving you free private healthcare, free life insurance, 4 times your annual salary, critical illness. You got sick pay for like the next 12 years, whatever it is. But what if you leave that role? You always want to have something in the bank that's of your own little policy. So then, like I said, you're not tied to that employer. So the reality is no, everyone should have it. And I think it's about asking yourself that question as well, like taking the horrible statistics out of the equation. Like with yourself, you wasn't thinking of the health side. You was thinking, hold on, I've got a mortgage and I need somewhere to live and I need to pay my mortgage.
That was it,
It's just a simple question. Where I am today, do I ever want to be in a worse position than where I am now? If the answer's no, insurance. If the answer's yes,
that's a good idea.
Then don't get it.
That's a good idea.
Because then that's a possibility. But if the answer's no, then get insurance, because that's one of the things that's going to guarantee you're never going to be in a worse position than where you are now.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You know what I find actually very funny? The fact that we're more willing to pay for car insurance, obviously it's mandatory, and other things and things that's to do with our health, dental, medical, life, critical. People just scoff at that, but they're willing to spend money on other stuff. And actually, when you think about it, it's not that expensive to pay for these other things that's actually tied to your health. Yeah, it's meant to help you to do anything with your health. So I find that fascinating why people sort of just
dismiss it.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. They're willing to take the gamble.
The gamble.
Well, I think with income protection, it is a gamble because I mean, how many of us have taken time off? You know, like maybe it's like 1 or 2 days and then we've gone back to work because of whatever reason. We've got responsibilities. We need the bills to be paid. No one's trying to sacrifice holiday against sick days and X, Y, and Z in comparison to actually saying, I'm not feeling too good right now. I need to take a couple of weeks off. My employer's going to have to deal with it. I can still pay the bills while I get back to being at my optimum health. So that's why I say, reality, it is a gamble because we just don't know what life's going to throw at us. And we get in that car every day and we drive. Them London streets are a gamble. Do you know what I mean? Or getting on the tube with COVID now. That's a gamble. But you're right. We don't. And I think that does boil down to the uneducation and the miseducation. I mean, we come out of school and we go straight, for those of us who choose to go to university, and we get thrown like thousands of pounds thrown at us, but no one told you anything about a credit score and stuff like that. So there is a big gap in the education.
Massive.
And I think the problem is as well, is word of mouth can also play a big part. If you're like 21, 22, the reality is who are you looking at to educate you on things like that? Your parents. But if your parents have had a bad experience...
it just trickles down.
It's going to keep trickling down. So I think that's a big problem as well. But if we can educate...
Which we're trying to do. We're trying to do that.
That not everyone has to have a negative experience and get the understanding of why people have had negative experiences. I think if we can get around that, then we can change the game.
And I think it'll take time, but I think it's going to happen eventually. I think there's definitely way more, awareness of this stuff than there was 100%. A few years ago, and people are actually starting to take this seriously.
Heed,
going to the challenges of being a business owner. Have you found it challenging? What would you say are some of the biggest challenges? I think some of the biggest challenges is
second guessing yourself.
Okay.
Because I think when it's you, and obviously I'm a big advocate of, like I said, outsourcing and X, Y, and Z, but when it's you and your business, it's more than just a source of income. Do you know what I mean? It's something that you're passionate about. It's something that you love. So you want to always get it right. So you're always thinking of every eventuality. Like there's times when I put out a piece of content and I'm like, I wonder how did that hit the right tone? Could that be misconstrued? X, Y, and Z? Or you could just be sitting there thinking, what do I do now? I'm out of ideas now. What next? So it definitely can be challenging, or sometimes you just get to a point and you just think, what's next? Okay, I've been doing this now. What's going to happen next year? X, Y, and Z. Or like you said, you get on that hamster wheel because it's going to happen. Even if it's just throughout the month for a short period of time, it happens. You get up and you find yourself in this routine and then you think, nah, man, I'm tired. What now? And then it comes back. So I think I think sometimes you can be your biggest issue, overthinking things, second guessing, doubting, whatever. But I think networking and having conversations with other people can really help to overcome that, and not being afraid to share ideas and just take, like experience or advice from other people. Other perspectives is great sometimes when it's not just your own.
You know what? I think when I was content creating, I definitely struggled with, how's this going to come across? What are people going to think?
Especially
Are they going to read it in this way? And you know what? I got to a point, I think it was one of these other Instagrammers that, that does the whole, they teach us about like Instagram and all this and content, stuff like that. Yeah. And one of them was saying, look, stop overthinking it. Like, you will never know how it's going to do until we put it out. And who cares anyway? Just put it out, right?
Exactly.
And if it does good, it does good. How do you manage to overcome the challenges that you mentioned?
That's a good one. I'm a big fan of writing things down.
Okay.
So like being quite methodical, so like to-do lists and X, Y, and Z. So I think if there's a challenge, like write it down. What really is the challenge? What are you being presented with? Yeah. Then obviously thinking of any immediate solutions, talk it out with a friend, ask someone else for help who you think either is more experienced or you just need a fresh pair of eyes on something. So I think, that's probably the best way that I can say I can cope with challenges. Do I get frustrated and have like a meltdown every now and again? Yeah. But I think with your own business as well, the reality is, and it's a hard one, but the reality is how bad can it be? Unless your business gets shut down tomorrow.
That's true.
Then because it's you can always be flexible, you can always be fluid and think of a way to adjust and overcome it. That is kind of like the beauty of like being self-employed and being an entrepreneur, is that it doesn't just stop there. Whereas the difference is, which sometimes people think is easier when you're employed, is the reality is your employer has an expectation. So if you don't meet that expectation, then that's it.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? So there's less room for maneuver. You know, shut your desk off at 6 p.m. or whatever and go home, but it kind of stays with you if you know your employer is disappointed. Whereas with It's You, it's like, okay, what's the solution? Like, how can we overcome this? If I have to wake up tomorrow and rebrand myself because I messed up yesterday, then we'll do something else.
Wow, that's epic. It's interesting to writing down, because I feel like when you write something down, you actually look at it and think, actually, like you were saying, is this actually as bad as I thought it was?
Yeah.
You know, I think for humans, whenever we get negative news, we're always filled with dread. We always think of the worst case scenario. But like 100%. You said, is it going to kill you? Is the business shutting down? Most likely not. Okay, maybe something bad happened, but is it fixable? Yes, it is fixable. You know, and I think on the previous episodes, we've actually spoken about this before in terms of thinking more from a solution perspective instead of a problem perspective. It's very interesting that you brought that up, and I think that is definitely a very important point to, you know, keep in mind. What would you say to somebody who's starting out their business? What 3 things would you say that they need to be successful?
Okay, understand what your business really is, and is this a business? Is this a side hustle? Or is this a hobby?
Okay. Yeah, you got the third one. Yeah.
Do you know what? Let's just be honest. So I think it's to understand really what it is. So that would be tip number 1. Tip number 2 is knowing your resources. So for example, if you take the following 12 months, you know, how much income am I looking to achieve? What sort of things, from the perspective of a CEO, essentially that's where you're trying to get to. At the moment, you're just a one-man band. You want to be a CEO of a limited company. If you're trying to scale the businesses, what resources do I need? That may be a social media manager. That may be a marketing executive. That may be an administration assistant. If you know what those resources are from the beginning, you know, it might be studio space, office, whatever. If you know what those resources are in the beginning, then you can kind of start work backwards from there. Eventually I'm going to need an office. I can do this in my bedroom right now, but eventually I'm going to need an office. Let me work towards that with that in mind, rather than, like I was saying before, where you're working, you're seeing income and then you're not willing to let go of some of that money to scale the business.
Exactly.
I would probably say resources number 2, and then 3 as well, probably kind of in a roundabout way kind of boils back down to that integrity. You know, like, what are you really trying to achieve? How are you trying to impact people? And what's the long-term vision, aside from making making money. I mean, there are a million ways to make money right now.
Exactly.
And it's not to say that people haven't got into businesses to make money, but and it's just taken off and they've done really well, you know, great. And then, you know, the ideas are flooded in and maybe the integrity's come afterwards.
Exactly.
But like, just maybe if you can think about that from the start, I think that's a good approach.
Wow. I love those tips. I love the integrity. I love that you reinforced it. I love the fact that you're saying, be honest with yourself. Is it a proper business?
You know what? Like,
is it a hobby? Is it a side hustle? Just be honest.
Just
at the end of the day,
honest.
you just gotta, like, you know, take that humble pie sometimes and just realize what it is to you, and you know, be also honest on how long it's gonna take you to do it. If you're spending 1-2 hours a week, very likely it's not gonna grow as fast as you would like it. If you're spending every day, maybe, but it's not guaranteed either. So you just gotta be honest with yourself in every aspect. That's just so funny. What would you say to you know, mothers that are starting out their business? What would you say? Like, what tips would you give them for them to excel in terms of their business, as well as, you know, balancing
being a mum? Yeah, I think time management. Yeah, you've already got the skills because you are a mum, so you've got time management. It doesn't feel like it. We never feel like we've got time management under control. Like, let's face it. But the way we are able to multitask is next level.
True that.
Do you know what I mean? So, you know, use your mothering skills that you use to raise your child, to raise your business at the end of the day. So, and then I think, just trying to find the balance between the two. So time. The reality is, you know, like, for example, with my son, I'll be honest, there were times where I was having a conversation, because he's only 2. There were times last year during lockdown where I was trying to have a conversation with a client during a nap. And of course, then he woke up. Yeah. It wasn't the best. It was hard at the end of the day. But then as experience grew and sort of, you know, my experience as being a mum, my experience as, you know, having conversations with my clients, as that increased over time, it was like, okay, you can't always have a conversation and be playing Russian roulette with him waking up from his nap. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got to try and work this out. So it was like, okay, bottom line is, if I have to spend 1 day a week and cram as many clients in to that 1 day, for example, and then do the admin when he's gone to bed or whatever. So, like, just know your routine and how you can effectively use your time. I think that's the number one tip, and definitely thinking of the direction that you're going to go in, because there does come a point in your business as well when it does start to grow, where you then find yourself toying with scaling the business and taking all that comes with it, and still trying to be that same mum that you was before the business. Something's got to give. And you've got to give something. And sometimes giving up something isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it means giving up something to be a better version of you in the long run. So just, don't be too hard on yourself either, man.
It's not about being perfect. And I think, you know, that's what you're echoing throughout today, that it's not about being perfect. Some things you might get right, some things you might get wrong, but don't be too hard on yourself, and just continue improving that. I definitely love the tips. It's been great having you on.
You. Thanks for having me.
No, you've been a great guest. You've dropped so many gems, and you've got me to think in a complete different way. So I thought, you know, I've got my notepad mentally anyway. Where can people find you?
Okay, so on social media, Instagram, Ella Insures, Ella_Insures. If you want to drop me an email, it's hello@ellainsures.com. Drop me a DM. And then, on my social media, all of my booking contact. If you just want to have a chat as well, like, it's fine. Just a simple conversation. People who have got policies as well in place and they want to get them reviewed. Because sometimes that doesn't always happen with previous advisors. Just like I said, life catches up, especially with COVID. But if you've got something in place and you want to review it, just to make sure that it's cost effective, maybe your circumstances have changed, I can have a look over, just to not to discredit your former advisor, but to compliment them and make sure everything's still good.
I like that. That's a great way to spin that. What have you got planned next in the pipeline at the moment?
So in the pipeline, got a few collaborations coming up with a couple of brands, like finance apps and stuff like that coming out. I'm also kind of switching up the content a little bit as well. So a slight sort of reintroduction, really going to home in now on like those conversations that not everyone
Yeah.
feels always as comfortable to have surrounding financial literacy and insurance, and just understanding why there's gaps. So switching up the content, partnering up with a few brands, potentially a few events next year.
Okay.
I'd really love. It's always been
good.
something that I'd love to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm at the moment, I'm just like doing my research, seeing what the people want, and then seeing what I can give them.
I think definitely there's definitely a gap for that. There's not enough events happening right now for financial literacy, and I'm sure that
and financial literacy where the event is lit as well.
Yes,
do you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like that nice balance.
It needs to be. Have some jerk chicken, some jollof rice, all of that there as
and
well.
talk money.
Yeah, exactly.
And walk away thinking, okay.
Yeah, what better can you do? Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing how those unravel. Obviously, share across the socials. Let me know. We can talk about it.
Definitely.
If you happen to have an event in the future. Hope you've all enjoyed this episode. It's been great having Ella on board. It's been fantastic. Hope that you've had your notes, and we'll see you for another episode next week.